The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Let's go! What time is it? Game time! Game time! It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
Toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth! What a comeback!
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow. Little man makes another enormous play. 1 second remaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughan, and Randy Isbell.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max, and this one is special because it's our final podcast during preseason technically, and before the regular season begins when we do our Thursday night show. We will be talking about that opener between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. So the season will have begun, and we'll get to get predictions on the week 1 games and everything else. But this is our season preview episode, so we will be going through every single division, giving you our 1 through 4, who's going to win, where we have wild cards. Then we go through our playoff scenarios and wind up on who wins the Super Bowl. This is what we're doing here. On this show, there's a couple of news items that we got to talk about too before we get to that. But Erik, how are you doing?
Next time, it will be for real. Although the college weekend opener did give up a nice appetizer.
Yes, there was plenty of college that happened. Some great stuff on that weekend. Nice week 1 happening there. Gary, I think it's just ready for some football.
I'm totally ready for some football. Let's just hope it doesn't get blown away. Hopefully we get a chance to watch some of these games and really be excited, although some of the weather may be a concern for a few teams here.
Yeah, certainly. That being said, of course, Erik and I do live in Florida. I live in the Miami area. Erik lives near Jacksonville, so I'm probably going to be more affected than Erik is, but there's possibility that I don't get affected very much or as heavily as they're thinking, and maybe Erik doesn't get affected at all, or maybe he does. So right now we have no idea if everything's going to be okay for us to be doing a Monday show where we will be, going over, discussing all the the games from that Sunday, the doubleheader, Monday Night Football, all that. No idea. It kind of just depends on how all this stuff with Hurricane Irma goes. If all goes well and we still have all the things in order, places to live and all that kind of, things that we have right now at this moment before anything hits, everything will go as scheduled. But if you don't hear from us on that Tuesday morning on demand, you don't see, that's probably because Irma may have affected something. So just putting that out there before we start. And I do know that Irma's hitting islands. My sister is doing her medical residency as an emergency doctor in Puerto Rico right now, where it may hit hard, it may not, depending on the trajectory. They have like 1 million of these, and they don't seem to be all correlating. So my hearts and prayers go out to her and then everybody else that's being affected as well. But yeah.
Definitely kind of, a bummer because, we're excited about football season and now, we're having to deal with all this stuff going on. And I just hope, this whole hurricane thing decides to kind of taper down and We don't have to worry about those problems, and we could just sit back this weekend and enjoy some great times with these games coming up, because I'm looking forward to week 1. It can't get here fast enough.
Yeah, I can't wait till week 1. Can't wait to be able to watch, these games and break them down and look at, what happened and how they did and everything else. That's going to be a lot of fun. But, hey, as far as week 1 is concerned, 2 things are happening that we weren't too sure about, but it looks like they are both panning out right now. One of them, as Gary alluded to, because of Hurricane Irma, of course, Miami was playing Tampa Bay. So this is 2 Florida teams playing each other. Hurricane's coming. We're going to have to move. There was speculation at the beginning, sort of earlier in the day, that perhaps they don't even play this week and they just play the game on week 11. But they've gone back on that, and now it seems like the game will be played somewhere in Pennsylvania, whether it's at Heinz Field or at Lincoln Financial Field in Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. I think this is the much better move, right? Instead of having to have both teams play 16 games straight.
Yeah, there was a reason that in the 90s the NFL instituted bye weeks for a reason. I mean, Miami's getting kind of the short end because they're also playing a London game this year, so Hard Rock Stadium's only going to see the Dolphins 6 times in the regular season, but unfortunately, some things are within your control, but a lot of things aren't.
Yeah, it truly is, a better idea and relocate, and keep everything pretty much on schedule, even though you are having to deal with, finding a new place to play. It just makes more sense to me, and I feel like, it doesn't, hurt the team later on. We've seen this in some of these other situations with the Houston Texans and the Houston Astros and the scheduling and all that, and it has not been fun for them, and they've had to weigh what's best for the players along with what's best for the team, and that's always very difficult. So to avoid a lot of issues, it's better to stay on point on what the schedule says, and I think that would be definitely my best option if you ask me.
Yeah, I think this is a much better option, having to have them both play in week 11, and then you don't get any bye week at all. I mean, that could really affect both teams in a negative way. Getting that extra week off when the season's just starting, everybody's ready to go. They don't care about that. They want to get the season going, and I just think that they're picking the much better option here for both teams involved. Now, the more pressing concern and the thing that we've been talking about feels like all off-season, preseason, and everything else. The saga is going to continue, it looks like. The NFL has decided to reject the appeal, or basically uphold the decision by Roger Goodell, reject the appeal by Ezekiel Elliot, and he still has 6 games on the slate as of right now. But because of the fact that he waited until too late on Tuesday to make the decision, the NFL has granted Ezekiel Elliot the ability to play week 1. Now this means that Elliott has to miss an extra game in the schedule that he wouldn't have missed had he already just been sitting out week 1. So this means that now he doesn't play against the Kansas City Chiefs, correct? In week 9. Or he doesn't play against the Redskins on week 8. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Redskins. And I wasn't aware of that. See, I thought each game that they actually played, when it comes to paychecks, that's when he had to worry about it. So that's what's interesting to me. If that's the case, I had no idea. But yeah, that's definitely gonna, be a big question mark for fans if let's be honest, this thing doesn't go Zeke's way and their way, they'll definitely be pointing at maybe a win or a loss and say, there you go. It's because they decided to go ahead and, try to get something done that couldn't be done.
I mean, this also negatively affects even though they did a good job of corralling Zeke last year, this negatively affects the Giants, who perhaps were preparing for without Ezekiel Elliot in that first game, and now he's all of a sudden there. Of course, Jason Garrett's already said that the game plan hasn't changed at all because of the fact that Elliot gets to play. But obviously this is a weapon that is huge for Dallas to have, and now something that the Giants have to deal with. Erik, what do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, considering as how the Giants had some flaws on defense anyways, yes, this is a negative impact, but it may not be as much as people would lead you to believe. I think, if anything, this is more of a boost for the Cowboys, knowing that they have an extra weapon and trying to beat a team who in recent years has had their number, rather than, the Giants are taking a hit because now they have to prepare for this one extra player.
Gary, I mean, there's a way that this could kind of turn negatively on the Cowboys too, right? Like, Zeke could go out there and not play well. And maybe it's not just, the offensive line didn't create holes or the defensive line was being a problem. Just Zeke gets distracted or something of that nature, and he doesn't go out there and get 100 yards, or maybe he drops some passes and stuff that gets thrown to him. Do you think that could be an issue for him at all here?
It could be a problem. Let's be honest, the Dallas Cowboys have been very, sporadic about allowing him to get on the field in preseason. They don't do it very often. They really, honestly, the only time I think he did get on the field the entire preseason was for the dress rehearsal against the Oakland Raiders. And I think he got 7 carries there. And it's kind of been a traditional thing for them not to use the running backs for the most part in preseason. Saying that, the New York Giants are a heavy task to face, especially being week 1 coming in, not really having a ton of in-game action besides what you get in practice. So I think that the Giants could frustrate him. I think that Zeke could really come into the game confident and feel like he's going to prove everybody that he's, feeling good. But if the Giants stop him and really, maybe hold him to 50 yards or less in the first half, I think you could see definitely a guy that may get a little freaked out, may start to kind of question his ability and what's going on there. I don't know that's going to happen, but I could see that point, and I could see that happening because the Giants, their number one goal now is stop Zeke. Before that, their number one goal was to stop Dak Prescott. So it completely switched here, and they're going to be ready for Zeke now.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants' defense, like I said, last year did a pretty good job of kind of holding Zeke to where he wasn't doing, the crazy 150 yards a game and doing all this. So they kind of know what they need to do. It's more almost on the Cowboys to figure out how do we manipulate this defensive front while also having, 2 young positions on the line that you didn't have last year. So that's a battle that we'll talk about more when we go Thursday and start previewing games. But let's get back to the sort of legal side of this, just so we can put a bow on this. And I'm sure we might have to talk about it on Thursday if they rule on it. But so right now, what everybody's waiting on is that actually this came out right after we ended the show last time, which kind of sucks. But we'll talk about it now, is that the NFLPA went ahead and filed a petition with the U.S. District Court in East Texas trying to void the suspension and wanting a restraining order against any appeal decision by Harold Henderson. And so that judge gets to make a ruling. He has up until Friday at 5 p.m. Central to make that ruling. And then he will decide if they want to grant a stay while all this is being investigated. And if they do, obviously that means that Zeke gets to keep playing until something is figured out. And then, I don't know if they can go any further or whatever, but so Harold Henderson said pretty much that he found it unnecessary to re-examine all the evidence in this record because after his review, he felt the commissioner reviewed and did everything he was supposed to do, and that under the CBA, he made the ruling that he thought was correct, and he's pretty much upholding that ruling. Of course, the Cowboys attorneys, they had their own thought on this, and this is pretty much what the NFLPA's request was saying, that their attorneys were saying, we're extremely disappointed with Mr. Henderson's inability to navigate through league politics and follow the evidence, and most importantly, his conscience. The evidence that Mr. Elliot and his team presented on appeal clearly demonstrated that Mr. Elliot was the victim of a conspiracy orchestrated by the National Football League and the officers to keep exonerating evidence from the decision makers, including the advisor and Roger Goodell. The only just decision was to overturn the suspension in its entirety. Mr. Elliott is looking forward to having his day in federal court, where the playing field will be level and the NFL will have to answer for its unfair and unjust practices. The NFL then responds by saying that they are trying to file a motion to dismiss the petition as an improper race to the courthouse, and then saying that they're trying to create a conspiracy story where there is none. So this statement here by the NFLPA, that doesn't look good for the NFL at all. To go outright and say all this stuff. And then when you go to court and you have the, I don't want to get into this too much. It's supposed to be a season preview, but it's just like, man, this is something. I know that there's the CBA, and I know that we've already had the ruling with Tom Brady, where under the CBA the NFL can kind of do whatever they want. But when you have like unfair practices come up and that kind of thing, isn't this something that the court can look at and go, hold on a minute, this is going beyond their reach, right?
This is, this is the whole situation. It's really bad, I think, for both sides. And really, the NFL is not going to walk away from this looking great. And I don't think Ezekiel Elliot himself is going to walk away from this whole thing looking great. It's going to still stick around both those guys. You're going to have the NFL pretty much go through a long, rigorous process, just like Tom Brady's situation, and deal with public opinion. And then you're going to have Ezekiel Elliott, who, even if he is exonerated, I don't know that Nike and Reebok and all these other people that, want to sponsor NFL players are going to be knocking his door down to talk to him after his name's been just slung through the mud completely. So both these guys are kind of losers on this. This whole situation, it really made me think of something today, and I thought it was kind of funny because both sides are so stubborn. I thought of the example of a teacher giving a kid a D on his homework, and the kid goes, look, it's just not fair. You can't give me a D. You don't understand. I did my homework. I just had to do it in a hospital room because I broke my leg. And then the teacher says, well, I still don't think you deserve it because, example one, you shouldn't have been playing outside. Example two, just because you say things happen, I don't care. It means you didn't want to do your homework. That's why you broke your leg. And it's, no matter what the parents go and talk to the teacher about, the teacher's still going to be stubborn. And that's the way this is going. They made their decision. They're going to stick with it. They don't care who else tells them it's otherwise. It could be God himself coming down from the heavens, and the NFL is going to look at him and say, he did it. It's just the way it's going to work. And I don't know. I can't really say Zeke did or did not do it. All I know is both sides are being stubborn, which is hurting their image on both sides.
Erik, what do you think here?
This is a classic case of the NFL. You could say they are still holding strong in cleanup mode, even dating back to the Ray Rice situation, but I think this is a case of Goodell coming in now, being very heavy-handed and stubborn, just like he was when he first replaced Paul Tagliabue as commissioner. Now,
Yeah,
Grant,
but does Zeke have a leg to stand on here when he goes to court, or is this all we're going through this and then they're just gonna go, oh, CBA, we can't do anything?
no, I really do think Zeke has a leg to stand on because he went through all of the legal channels, all of the investigation. Through one way or another, they decided that there was nothing there. And if you look at it based upon the timing of a lot of these events, and this is going to be interesting to see whether this comes up, was he technically under the NFL's jurisdiction, and where does that begin? If you look at the mountain of evidence where it's being presented right now, the answer is no. But maybe the NFL has a trick up under their sleeve saying yes at XYZ or at this date, etc., or the defense will say, well, no, he wasn't because this, and this. So that's one angle that I'm curious as to see whether it's going to come up, and that could be the thing that, in essence, kind of saves him.
Well, and then in any other case, right? If it's found out that you're withholding evidence or negligibly deciding not to put that evidence in there, unless it's mutually agreed that you're not going to put it or whatever, you can have the whole thing thrown out for something like what the league decided to do with the Kia Robinson testimony, where she interviewed the woman and she says, look, this kind of seems like a setup to me. And the NFL says, oh, well, we don't want that. Well, doesn't that kind of point in the direction that the NFL is withholding that because that would make them look bad? If, say, oh, well, you're recommending that we don't suspend him at all, but we want to suspend him. So let's just act like whatever you said didn't exist. And that usually doesn't look good in the court of law. I know the NFL can get around it probably, but I'm just saying that seems like just a big red flag when you're looking at corporations doing something like that. It's just weird to me. But unless you guys want to comment on this again, just
I think this is the waiting game, right? This is what we're going to be doing for a while. We'll talk about this more and more. No reason to rehash it over and over again. I'll just say this. I don't think this gets better real fast. I think we're all expecting, okay, this end of this week, it's going to be hunky-dory. They're going to figure it out. What's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. I think we're in for a long ride, and I don't know that I want to talk about this week in, week out, but we probably will.
Do you think that the judge grants them to stay or no?
It's hard to say. The Ezekiel Elliott's group picked the place that they'd picked on purpose, and that's in Texas. Just like New York picked Tom Brady's location as New York to have the court case and all that stuff take place. So I don't know. I have a feeling it will, because I don't believe this is going to go away so fast. If it's not upheld, well, guess what? What leg are they going to have to stand on for Zeke? Not much.
They can still go to the next court if they want, right? They said federal court, so
I guess they could. I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be a process. It's going to take more time.
We'll see, certainly. But enough talking about stuff that doesn't involve the actual playing on the field. Let's talk these divisions, these teams, all 32 teams starting at 0-0, trying to vie for one championship at the end. Obviously, not all of them are contenders, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to weed out who are the contenders and who are not. And we're going to start out, might as well just start this thing out in the AFC East, where it seems like with everything that has happened in the offseason, this is the New England Patriots and just some people in a division. Is that pretty much what this is? Do the Dolphins have any shot?
Wild card, yes, but overtaking the defending Super Bowl champions again, unless someone, maybe me, breaks out a couple of voodoo dolls, it ain't happening.
You know, it's kind of funny. The way you look at this division, you kind of say to yourself immediately, okay, New England comes out of this, who else does? And you just start to think about, what was this offseason like? What happened? And, you know, you really hope that Buffalo finally can turn that corner and get back to their glory days and finally do something. You look at the Dolphins and say, man, you know, they started something. Can they get past what they were starting with, or are they going to start, you know, basically at the same situation they were at last year? And, of course, the Jets are there. Okay. But, you know, the rest of that, I think that really, to be honest with you, I don't know that the Dolphins or Buffalo have done enough to really come out of this and do a whole lot of damage. I think they're going to beat up on each other, and New England's just going to beat everybody else up that, you know, steps in their way, at least in this division. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Right now, as I'm sitting here, New England's just the only one coming out.
Yeah, I mean, New England is obviously head and shoulders above everybody else right now, and I would have said that even if Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback for the Dolphins. I think it's difficult to look. The Dolphins have a lot of things in place, right? They have the defensive front seven. They have, you know, there's questions at cornerback, but they are, you know, in the defensive backfield. And then you look on the offensive side, you know, Jay Ajayi has proven to be one of the best running backs in the league. They have a receiving core that is absolute dynamite if they can all get on the field at the same time. And then you add Julius Thomas to be a much more secure tight end than, you know, Jordan Cameron was. And you gave Ryan Tannehill everything that he could possibly have asked for. Then he gets hurt. You have to bring in Jay Cutler, who possibly still has more talent on this team than he ever had in his Chicago days, and even with Matt Forte and Alshon Jeffrey. And, you know, he doesn't have a lot of excuses if he goes out there and has bad games and pulls a Jay Cutler. If Jay Cutler can do what we saw him do with Adam Gase as his coordinator, maybe they have much more of a shot than they did previously, but you're still talking about the defending Super Bowl champions for a reason. They lost Julian Edelman, and I'm not saying that they're not going to miss a beat, because they probably will, but they go sign Philip Dorsett like it's no big deal, trade away their third-string quarterback for that, get some reinforcements on that end. You still got Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, all that, and I mean, they let LeGarrette Blount go, no big deal. We'll just go get Rex Burkhead and keep doing our thing. I don't see it. I just can't see it for the Patriots. Maybe there's a little bit more problems defensively. This could be the year the offensive line shows more holes than they have. Even with that, it's so hard because this division, it's like you have to think, you already got 6 wins before you even step on the field. Because the Jets and Bills are just that awful. Right? I mean, the Jets are basically tanking.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Bills are borderline tanking too. They keep trading away everyone.
Trading away everyone, and now with more questions at quarterback because you got
Peterman might even be better than Tyrod Taylor. But everybody that I've seen just keeps going, Peterman start. Please start Peterman. Please start Peterman. And depending on who you talk to, that's not the worst idea in the world.
It's not the worst idea, but the fact that you've got 2 of your 3 before you go and you sign Joe Webb, interesting choice as it is, dealing with concussions, you're okay. You say start him, here he is, and you're going to probably have to ride him out at least the first 2-3 weeks of the season, maybe longer. If he's the really stud that everybody says he is, great. But if he's not, well, then you're back to the drawing board again.
Yeah, we already saw for the Jets, Josh McCown got the wind knocked out of him, and they had to put Hackenberg in, and maybe Petty gets better and the Jets kind of show some flashes, but if you're having to start Hackenberg, good Lord. But I think this one's pretty simple. Patriots 1, Dolphins 2. I don't have the Dolphins making the wild card. Bills by default 3, and the Jets are in 4th where they want to be so they can cue the race for Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen or whoever else.
Yeah, and I'm right along there with you, Sean. I kind of feel like your order is right on the money. Once again, I would think it'd be kind of fun to see the Bills surprise people, but it's just not going to happen. Those question marks on that team are getting close to just as many as the Jets have, so it's a problem.
Yeah, only tweak that I would make, and part of this maybe is out of blind hope myself. Order of division is the same, but I see the Dolphins potentially maybe sneaking in as a wild card. I don't know. Maybe this magic that Gase wanted and is trying to create, maybe it happens in the Magic City. Who knows? I say, as reluctant as I am to say it, it could happen. Give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean it's very possible, right, that happens, but man, it's also tough to really think that it would, just because, let's be honest here, the AFC East schedule is kind of tough this year, right? They have to play, if this thing will do what it's supposed to do here, but I mean, they got to play the NFC South, which you're talking about 4 really good teams there that you're having to play. That's no joke. Yeah, your division is what it is. You might have, again, 4 wins before you step on the field, but you're also having to play the AFC West, and that's another tough division. You got the 2 really tough divisions you got to play in one schedule, and that's rough.
It's rough, but I don't know. Crazier things have happened, and especially in the case of the NFC South, we don't know who's going to be the top dog. We probably won't know until at least mid-season because of all the questions that are floating around for them.
All right, so let's move on to the AFC North, where you potentially have that 3-headed monster that seems to always happen, at least for the last many years, and a Cleveland Browns team that I feel like we say this every year with some kind of hype, and then they just don't do it. But a Cleveland Browns team that feels good about themselves coming into this season, I guess you could say. And yeah, because of DeShone Kizer and everything else. But is it still between Pittsburgh and Baltimore, or is Cincinnati still in this thing?
If you ask me, I think Cincinnati is just as well in the hunt. I think that Baltimore has done, what they usually do. They come in, they look at working on their defense. I think the biggest thing is, with Flacco and the things that he's had to deal with and all the other issues surrounding him has made a lot of question marks pop up in my mind. But I also feel like, they're transitioning. They've got some, new players, and they're trying to figure out things on their end. So I look at Cincinnati as still being a team that people need to watch out for. I really feel like that they could be one of the favorites out of this division. I still think that Andy Dalton has some weapons. They added, Joe Mixon in the mix here, but they still have their other backs, helping out. Plus, they still keep A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, hopefully, is going to be healthy, and just really have some offensive power behind them this year. And then a defense to still, maybe not be the best defense in the AFC, but I still think that they're going to be reputable, and I think they'll be kind of a tough contender. So, yes, I think three-headed monster is still there. I think they're going to fight it out. The way I'm looking at this thing, though, is Pittsburgh is going to be the best team. I think Pittsburgh has went far and above. They are a scary monster in this entire AFC besides their own division. And I look at Cincinnati as probably following them up. I would have Baltimore third, though. If they get a wild card spot, it's possible. But I'm not so that they will. And then Cleveland, I'm sorry. You're just not there yet.
Erik, do you feel like there's a chance that with all this stuff with Le'Veon Bell and not being there in the preseason or whatever, could this affect him at all? Could this affect
I really don't.
his year?
I really don't think so. He said the primary reason that he sat out was because of his health and the fact that if you're getting as many touches as he is, running the ball, catching passes out of the backfield, not taking those live reps and those hits in preseason, yes, it makes a small dent, but it helps nonetheless. So I think with Le'Veon, with his control and knowing his portion of the offense, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, and they're also bringing back Martavis Bryant, who missed the whole season last year. He is a weapon that Big Ben will love to have back. You tie that in with Love Bell and, of course, Antonio Brown. You got a deadly combination happening there, plus the addition at tight end and everything else. And then that defense has been improving. That defense has been just getting better every year. Now you add T.J. Watt, and he looks like he's going to be a beast, just like his brother. They've still some questions there, possibly in the secondary, but again, with the way they've drafted, it feels like the Steelers are going to be that number one team. But it might be a bigger fight. Baltimore's defense was also improved last year. Eric Weddle made them such a better team. Their defensive line was improved as the season went on. I think the biggest question for the Ravens, though, is Joe Flacco, right? How healthy is he going to be? Because Ryan Mallett playing the preseason, all right, whatever, right? Ryan Mallett playing the regular season, oh, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I want that if you're the Ravens. He's supposedly fine. He's doing good. Again, they also lost Kenneth Dixon, so you're doing that running back by Terrence West and whoever else. There's some questions there. And then Cincinnati, I think A.J. Green sort of had a down year last year. I think he's looking to improve upon that. Their defense is still strong. And the receivers have another year to gel with Dalton. I kind of agree with you, Gary. I think I'm going to go Steelers, Cincinnati, Baltimore. And I feel like the Browns are going to get more wins than they did last season. I think you're going to see them run the ball a bunch to help out Deshaun Kaiser. That offensive line, I think, is one of the highest-rated offensive lines in the league. That defense has looked much better under Mr. Greg Williams. He's got them motivated. I think we need to watch out for them. And yeah, they lost Joe Hayden, which is an addition for the Steelers. But I still think they're going to be okay. My question there is the receiving core for Kaiser, but he seemed to make it work. But that's also preseason, so let's see. I think it all comes down to Kaiser, how fast does he mature and everything, but maybe 5 or 6 wins for them this year, and not the 1 or 2 from last year. Erik, what do you have as your order here?
My order, with Pittsburgh, firing on all cylinders. They're definitely my number one. As a coin flip, just barely, and a lot because of team health, even though they've got issues of stupidity to deal with. I think Cincinnati is going to nip Baltimore. So it would be Cincinnati 2, Baltimore 3, and Cleveland. Well, hopefully you'll finally decide on a quarterback, but you're still finishing 4th.
Do you agree with me? You think Cleveland wins more games?
I do. I think they'll probably be a very good spoiler towards the end of the season. They'll probably 4, maybe 5 under their belt this year. 5-11. While I was rooting for them initially to go 0-16, and I still stick by that, I don't see that happening.
What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I think Cleveland's definitely got the opportunity to win more than what they did last year and just really progress. I think that their team is, definitely improved. I think at this point still the competition in their division, it's a little bit more, than I think they'll be able to handle in the long run. I think that they'll actually kind of slow some of these other teams, though, in their division, because I think that, where you would have maybe, Cincinnati or Pittsburgh going up and maybe, getting a high spot in the playoffs, they may bring down Cincinnati. Cincinnati may be the 6th seed in the AFC this year because of that, right? I mean, and that wouldn't be usually the case. So Cleveland could cause some problems for a few of these teams.
Yeah, would not rule that out at all. I do think Cincinnati winds up with a wild card spot for me. Do you have that as well, Gary?
I do. I think, definitely they'll be the wild card coming out of this division.
Same for you, Erik, or?
Close, but no. I think Cincinnati's going to be in the race, but I think they're going to fall just short.
All right, fair enough. So, now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the AFC South. The once again sort of interesting division if things can go right.
Yeah, interesting. Putting it mildly and putting it nicely.
Yeah, certainly. You've got two teams that certainly look like they're going on the upward trend. You've got the highly motivated Houston Texans after the unfortunate events of Hurricane Harvey, and congrats to J.J. Watt and everybody else, now raising $20 million. That is amazing, and hopefully it goes to all the right people. But yeah, you would think that this means that we might have a New Orleans season from these guys, where they rise above for that city and do well beyond sort of the extrapolating circumstances, the outside circumstances. This team is a good team, right? That defense, we got to finally see what Jadeveon Clowney was last season. Now if J.J. Watt stays healthy, you got that. You got a defense that is sturdy in all situations. You got DeAndre Hopkins getting paid, and he's going to be extra motivated. You got Deonta Foreman. Forget Lamar Miller. Deonta Foreman's going to be the dude, okay? And then you're going to have – the problem is Tom Savage good enough, right? You think Tom Savage is good enough for Houston to lead this division? Gary, what do you – or is it going to be Deshaun Watson like in week 5?
That's where I'm going. I really feel like Deshaun Watson is going to be appearing this season. And does that mean that Houston's going to be a bad team? No, I don't think so. I think what they're going to come to the conclusion of is, look, we can win games, but we're not winning early. We're not doing as much as we think we can with the team that we have set up here. Let's go ahead and jump into Deshaun Watson before it's, week 16, 16 or week 10 of the year. Then let's not wait. Let's go ahead and do it and see what the young kid can give us. And, I think they'll still be okay. I think that they've got, like you just mentioned the defense. They've got a defense that really could, cause problems for most of the teams in their division. And not only that, but, make some wreckage going on against all the other opponents they'll be facing this year. With that on his side, Deshaun Watson could, take his time and control the offense, I think, in a better situation than it would be if he was on, let's say the Cleveland Browns. I think he's in a way better situation. But, yeah, Tom Savage could set them back a little bit. I'm just not buying it. I'm sorry. At one point, I was kind of into Savage. I used to think, yeah, this kid has something, but I'm not sold anymore. I think this could be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson, with having the mobility, and yeah, he has some things he needs to work out. He's a rookie. This is going to happen, right? But for some guys, there's no better way to learn than by experience and by going out there and doing it. And he has a championship pedigree. The man won a championship at Clemson. He knows how to lead a team. And I feel like eventually, whether it's by pressure, because I feel like that's going to happen too, right, Erik? Like, Tom Savage, for some reason, starts throwing some interceptions. The team loses a couple of close games because of those. You might get the crowd starting to chant for Deshaun Watson.
Oh, and especially the fact that it's a very, very winnable division this year yet again. And the fact that, who knows, maybe Watson, he starts coming out even in those early games with a special package of plays just to try to ease him into things and get him NFL speed, maybe take a couple of regular season hits and have much less consequence. Now, I think Savage, while capable, has his limitations, and if they go, like, say, 3-4 to start the season and they're nearing the halfway point, then yes, they're going to bring in Deshaun Watson, see what he can do, ride out the rest of the way. I don't think that the trigger will be as quick as most people think, though.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll wait even longer, and I won't have a problem with that either. I think Tom Savage is serviceable enough, but again, you have other situations in this division. You have the Tennessee Titans, who come in with a quarterback that you know how good he is, right? And Marcus Mariota, if he can stay upright. He has a slew of receivers, some that they've added this season. He's still got DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. The offensive line is improved for them. I think you have some questions on defense there. But when you look at the rest of the division, the Colts have no idea when Andrew Luck's going to come back. We know he's not playing week 1. You're playing freaking Scott Tolzien, for God's sakes. You went and got Jacoby Brissett from the Patriots. He could maybe work out, but he's not even Garoppolo, right? So you don't know what you have with him. And then the Jaguars have no idea what they're doing with Blake Bortles and Chad Henne and who's going to be doing stuff there. Yeah, you could try to run with Fournette all day, but eventually you're going to stack people in the box, so you're going to stop him, and that's going to create a problem, right, Erik? I mean, that defense has been improving, but geez.
It's improving, but at the same time, with no disrespect to Paul Posluszny, he's getting older by the year, and he's still the anchor of that defense. Now, he made some moves along the line. You got some young talent that you could say maybe when he's out there, Dexter Fowler, maybe, but don't even get me started. But along those lines, we're building, but we're talking about a front seven. He's still the anchor, and that's not good enough. Secondary, younger, but steadily improving as you get more and more time out there. So this really relies on the offense. And, sorry, why Chad Henne still has a job? No idea. Blake Bortles, I think after this season, the Jaguars are going to decide to move on. You can't fix mechanics and keep them fixed. And I think you're going to run into this problem much more prevalently. So I gotta hunker down and go through another terrible season up here in Jacksonville.
It's crazy, Gary. Like a couple of years ago, we were talking about how awesome the Jaguars were, and you were drafting the two Allens in your fantasy leagues, and you were, you know, getting whoever you could on that offense because they were doing so many great. And Blake Bortles was the one doing that while he also ran for his life, right? And then in 2 years, we're going into the second year of this. Last year, it's just like, what the hell happened to the other Blake Bortles? So it's like, you think there's any way for Jacksonville to bounce back, or are they joining the
No,
Colts at the bottom?
they're joining the Colts at the bottom, and it's going to be a very ugly, despicable race to the cellar. It really is.
Yeah, and it is kind of odd because, yes, we were talking about how, Jacksonville was only going to go up, and yet here we are again sitting here saying, well, they could be better, and now there's some definite question marks and really some honest truths about what they really are now. And it's not that magical season anymore where we can just say, wow, I don't know how this is happening, but that's awesome. Let's let it keep going. Now this is based on reality and what this team really is, and that's the fact that they've added some decent pieces on defense. They've really tried on offense to find what can be the perfect formula, hoping that Fournette can be a big piece of this puzzle. But I'm not really sold on that, and I think that Jacksonville definitely has a upward battle. It's going to be an uphill battle, definitely to climb. This division really, to me, centers around what's going to be happening between the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. I think that the quarterback situation in Houston may put them below Tennessee, though. I think Tennessee's defense is a question mark compared to what Houston's got, question mark when it comes to quarterback on offense. I think that Tennessee can be the one to overcome most of theirs, whereas I think Houston, it's going to be an effect on the entire team. So I think if you ask me, coming out of this division, I have Tennessee. I feel really strongly that they can win this division. Houston's going to be really close. Trust me, they're going to be right there behind them. I think it's also the rally cry of, hey, we're doing this for Houston, that really keeps them in the mix and really gets that defense to work hard to win games that the offense may not be able to because, well, let's be honest, the quarterback may not be ready to face up with the big lights. So I thought that Jacksonville, once again, I want them to do well. I just know this is not their year. I got them at 3, and my fourth one is the Colts.
Yeah, for me, I feel like the Colts are such an uncertainty. Even if you get Andrew Luck back, is he going to be back to himself? Ryan Kelly is still kind of week to week. And even then, that offensive line's still going to have problems. Are you going to really put him back there just so he can continue to be sacked and potentially be hurt again? That's a problem if you're the Colts because, Andrew Luck's supposed to be your franchise guy here. And, you don't know who's going to be. Is Frank Gore going to be Frank Gore? Who's going to be doing that for? And then if you got Scott Tolzien and Jacoby Brissett or whatever, how does this affect your receivers? Are they going to be able to do anything? So that makes me feel like right now, because it's such an uncertainty, I feel like the Colts are going to be last. Jacksonville by default is going to be third. I think that they win more games than last year. They might be competitive, but it's hard to really trust what's going on there. I feel like Doug Marrone might have that offense doing stuff, but it's just like, are the quarterbacks going to be good enough? And this is where I think maybe that Hurricane Harvey bump, the defense I think is going to be extra motivated. Whether it's Savage or Watson, they're going to be asked just to be game managers. That defense can take you places that you never imagine. They can create the turnovers. They can get the sacks. I feel like Houston's going to do just enough because at the end of the day, the defense is what wins the championships. And I feel like Mariota still hasn't proven that over a season not only staying healthy, but can he do this for the team? He hasn't yet. So I'm going to say Houston wins the division, no wild card out of here for me. What do you say, Erik?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I would put the Colts third in that division over Jacksonville is because I know at some point late in the season, Andrew Luck's going to come back and they'll make a little bit of a run. That way he doesn't sit the entire year, even though he probably should. Let's remember, he just started throwing a football recently for the first time in 6 months. 6 months. With that said, the Jaguars and their complete discombobulation, therefore, Colts 3. And in another race, I've got the Texans. Houston strong, a little bit better of a defense, and with the way that the offense is managed, Savage can do a bit more with the different talents he has and the weapons of receiver he has at quarterback. That's going to be the edge where they win the division over Tennessee.
All right, so we have a discrepancy here. So far, the first two divisions we had the same winner, but nice to see a little bit of change going on. And speaking of change, perhaps we're going to a division where maybe a little bit of more change happening, as we have a team that not too long ago were Super Bowl champions themselves, the Denver Broncos. We have the Los Angeles Chargers now, who are seemingly rising through the ranks. And then you have the Oakland Raiders, who just absolutely surprised everyone, and now they are the darlings, one of the darlings of the NFL, as they also are preparing for a move themselves. And you have the Kansas City Chiefs. So, with Alex Smith and company, and that defense that still does things, this is a really tough division to call. You could literally make a case for either 4 of these teams. Gary, I mean, do you have maybe we have an inclination of who's number 1, but this is going to be a hard-fought battle all through the season.
It definitely is. And, I just mentioned a while ago about, teams beating up on each other. That's exactly what's going to happen in this division, especially. They are going to be fighting for every inch because it's going to matter, especially when you get close to the playoff time. And I think, for me, the Oakland Raiders are the favorite. That's not a big surprise. A lot of other people would say probably the same exact thing. So I'll hold off talking about them, but first I just want to say Kansas City is a team that I think a lot of people are very intrigued with. They've got, Alex Smith, really honestly coming back and trying to grow and have more of an offensive power that, they've kind of struggled with here and there, and I think that they're going to try to find a way despite losing Spencer Ware. Which was a big blow to them. I think that they were really hoping to have that leadership in the backfield, but now that is not there. And then you got the Denver Broncos, and the LA Chargers, both teams that have potential, but the question marks basically are everywhere on those teams. You just don't know what Denver you're getting. And the Chargers, are they good or are they just average? That's the big thing, and you just don't know. I think Phillip Rivers is amazing. I think he has a lot to offer that team still, and I think that, he's going to do pretty well at times, but do they have a defense that scares me? Not really. Do the Denver Broncos act like they're the Denver Broncos from back when they were winning Super Bowls? Not really. They've taken some hits too, so I think I've got to look at the Oakland Raiders as being my most well-rounded team. I love their offense. I think their defense is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. And Kansas City is a second favorite, but I think that Kansas City is going to have a little bit more tough times because of the fact that you've got the LA Chargers and Denver Broncos taking wins away from them that they really need when it comes to playoff time. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Oakland, and Oakland's my only team coming out of this division.
Yeah, I think, for one, don't sleep on Kareem Hunt doing things. And Spencer Ware-Stead, along with the running back by committee of C.J. Spiller and Tricare Nicholas and everything else. But I feel like Kareem Hunt's going to be somebody we need to keep an eye on. I've been saying that. I know I'm not the only one that said that, but I'm going to keep saying that. You know, somebody else that does show on this network may not particularly care for my opinion on that, but I'm going to keep saying it until it's proven wrong. And, you know, I feel like Alex Smith still has a lot left in the tank. He also got to prove, because he's got somebody sitting over there that might take his job, and Patrick Mahomes. So, you know, maybe he plays with that chip on his shoulder. You know, Tyreek Hill's got to also prove that last year wasn't a one-year wonder. So, you know, those skill position guys, they've got things that then they need to go on. Offensive line might be an issue for them. That defense is still what it is, and that's what's going to carry them at the end of the day. I feel like we're still looking at the Chiefs, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get to show that in Game 1, that the Chiefs are still here and they're a team to be reckoned with. The Raiders last year they surprised us all, and they swap out Latavius Murray. They bring in, they keep everybody else that they have, and now they're going to reload and do this again. You know, we don't know how far they could have gone last year had Derek Carr not got hurt, and I think that's also what they want to prove, that, look, we can have a nice, pretty season again, but what we do after this is what matters. Derek Carr just got a big load of money. I think there's something to be said for that. You got to now live up to that pressure, right? So, will people try to key in on him more because of that? We'll have to see, but he's got 3 really tough defenses just in this division. I think the Raiders win the division, but it's going to be a close one. And I'm telling you, look, at the Broncos, it depends on what Trevor Siemian you get. If Trevor Siemian is the game manager that can get things done, C.J. Anderson stays healthy, and Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders still have that left in the tank there, and they could do their thing, and maybe Jamal Charles helps out, and you also have the defense kind of coming back to that Super Bowl winning defense, even though they've lost pieces, which are a big deal, namely Wade Phillips. Now you got a different coordinator. That's going to affect your defense. And I'm telling you right now, don't sleep on the Los Angeles Chargers. This is the first time that defense with the skill position guys that they have, the Joey Bosa's, the Melvin Ingrams, Verrett, all those guys are playing together at the same time to start the season. And if all those guys can come together, they have a terrific defensive backfield. They have that front line. Linebackers are a little bit suspect. But you've got 2 of the 3. And I think that's going to be a positive for the Chargers going forward. We saw how devastating Bosa was in his rookie season, earning every right of that holdout. And then if Melvin Gordon can perform again, and if Keenan Allen stays healthy, this team is completely different than what it is without him. He is Philip Rivers' favorite target. He gets thrown to all the time, and then he makes those other receivers better. And it makes the Chargers a force to be reckoned with. So, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers wind up 3rd, Chiefs 2nd, Broncos wind up in 4th for me, and I think the Chiefs get that other wild card spot. But I would not be surprised at all if this entire division is fighting for, if not one, but both wild card spots come that November-December slate, because all 4 of these teams are really good.
Definitely. And I think, the things that are separating these teams are, honestly, maybe a few positions. But besides that, they're pretty close to being equally good. And I think, the Oakland Raiders, the reason they're favored so much is because all around they've got a lot of advantages, especially for the fact that I think they've got the number 1 offensive line in the league. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's big. Erik, what are you thinking?
Got a little gotta let a little bit of my Raider bias sneak in here. I made, as part of my bold prediction, how they're going to do. I think, yes, the defense is going to cause them some problems. It's going to create more pressure on guys like Khalil Mack and that front seven to do their job and rush the quarterback because, as you saw all throughout the preseason, the secondary's iffy. I do agree, though. I think this is going to be a very tough division. I see the Raiders winning. I see the Chiefs sneaking and getting my second wild card. I think because of the sheer stability, and we know Phillip Rivers starting to wind down with the Chargers in his career, he's going to try to perform something for the road, but I don't think it'll be enough. They're 3, and even with the defense that the Broncos has, they don't have enough. I mean, they went kind of crawling back and re-signing Brock Osweiler. That tells me everything I need to know. Close fourth, but still fourth nonetheless.
Could you imagine if we've seen Paxton Lynch gets hurt? Could you imagine if Simeon gets hurt too and Brock Osweiler is the QB of the Broncos again?
And it's funny because Cleveland is going to be paying him a little over $15 million to play for Denver.
Oh boy! Wow.
Yeah, of the $16 million, the Broncos are only on the hook for $775,000.
Man.
How lucky are they?
Yeah, really.
Ooh, yes.
So let's move on now. Moving on to so let's recap here. We have everybody had the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Chiefs, and you have the Chiefs, Erik, as a wild card. Gary does not. I have, this is the one where we varied. You and I had the Houston Texans, Erik. Gary had the Tennessee Titans. No wild cards here.
For me, the Houston Texans are the wild card.
Oh, okay, so you have Houston, Texas wild card, and then we all picked Pittsburgh. You and I, Gary, had Cincinnati as a wild card. And then we all picked the Patriots with Erik thinking the Dolphins get a wild card. So, interesting stuff for the AFC. Now, let's get into the NFC. NFC West, you have the Seattle Seahawks, the perennial guys that always do well in this division. Russell Wilson's still there doing his thing. No Jermaine Kearse, he's over there as a New York Jet. But never fear, because you just keep improving that defense. The Legion of Boom might, in fact, be back. Sheldon Richardson gets added to that defensive line. The offensive line's got to deal with a big problem of losing your left tackle. How does that come into play? But Russell Wilson's used to running for his life with his team already. It doesn't matter. He's used to having an awful offensive line. Jimmy Graham is going to be closer to the Jimmy Graham of old, I feel. And you got the running back situation, which, who knows, depending on how much Eddie Lacy eats or doesn't eat, he might be a factor. And then you got everybody else that's going to be doing something. Oh, I forgot to ask, 'cause we're still on the Seahawks here, former Seahawk. Do you think that Marshawn Lynch plays a huge factor here for the Raiders, or does he kind of just get you your 60 yards rushing and maybe catches some balls, and he's a bit of a role player? Are they overrating his impact here? A lot of people are just thinking, oh, he plugs in, gets 100 yards for a bunch of games, and he's going to do this miracle job of coming out of retirement and be awesome. What do you think?
If you look at amongst the more realistic of the Raiders fans, they're seeing 700-800 yards over the course of the season. I think that's about right. Because, yes, that year off freshens his legs a bit. His style of running will only take you so far. And with how they're trying to mold the offense more around Derek Carr, anything they'll get from him is a bit of a bonus. So, while not a 1,000-yard guy, I originally had, say, 700, 750 yards. I stick with that.
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch is one of those guys that he exudes confidence. He's going to bring a lot to the table when it comes to leadership, I think, in that backfield. And I think that he is going to give him that little extra oomph at times where Latavius Murray was a decent player, but he really just never had that. And I think that Marshawn Lynch, we've got to keep our expectations in check. This guy is not going to be running for, his life and just getting 100 yards a game. I think you are going to get, 2 touchdowns and 60 yards or, 48 yards and a touchdown and maybe even a receiving touchdown, things like that. But he's still going to be an impact for this team. He's going to help them. And I think that, of course, being a guy that's been to the dance, I think that he's also going to, have that experience if they do get to the playoffs. It's not such a big deal.
Yeah, certainly. I do think people are kind of overrating him a little bit, but I think even doing at his age, the 800 yards and maybe 10 touchdowns or something like that, that's really good for him. And maybe not the greatest thing you want to hear if you're taking him in a high pick in fantasy or something, but hey, that's on you for not reading the lay of the land, right? So let's get on to this NFC West here. You have the Seahawks, which I mentioned, the Cardinals, who the aging wonders of Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald, along with the rest of their young receiving core, David Johnson, of course, and that defense. Then you got the Rams, who had the problem with Aaron Donald holding out still. Jared Goff tries to improve with a better receiving core, and Todd Gurley hopefully getting back on track. And then you've got the San Francisco 49ers, first year for Kyle Shanahan. They've sort of looked interesting in the preseason. Carlos Hyde now gets to know that he's the number one back, no doubt. Joe Williams goes for the IR, and you just got Mr. Breda there as a second running back. And that makeshift group of receivers is going to have to do it for Brian Hoyer. But, yeah, it's kind of feels like it's status quo with this one, but could Arizona surprise?
I wouldn't. This is where I have to disagree with you in saying that Carson Palmer's a bit of the ageless wonder, because he's shown he's had a lot more off games than on over the past couple seasons, and especially last year. But I think if he keeps it together, they can surprise. I just don't know if they're going to win the division. But I have a major caveat because I've seen Seattle over the preseason. Did they finish 4-0, or did they slip up and finish 3-1?
I know Cleveland finished 4-0, and they were giving out T-shirts that they were 4-0 in the preseason. So
That completely justifies me picking them to finish dead last. I knew there was something about that, but yeah,
hold on. I'll find out. Go ahead, keep talking.
Because with Seattle, they've shown that when they're on, they can put up 30, 40 points on you, even with the offense and even with the issues in the offensive line. You can credit that to the read option. Eddie Lacy at running back, well, there were not just one but two backups that can show, at bare minimum, they have a lot of great depth. Whereas for Arizona, you have to rely on David Johnson and the fact that whether or not he's going to potentially fulfill the magic markers of a 1,000 season. Me personally, I think he might fall just a teeny bit short, but it's going to be an interesting race to watch. But if Seattle did not finish 4-0 in the preseason, I can easily see them winning the division, Arizona getting a wild card. I would have to put the Rams at 3 simply because Jared Goff is finally going to play in an NFL offense and do something. And Brian Hoyer in San Francisco is not the same Brian Hoyer in Cleveland. That it's going to be bad times that side of the bay.
To answer your question, the Seahawks did go undefeated in the preseason.
Okay. Exercising my right of caveat, I am going to flip that around. Oh, why did they not lose at least just once? Once. All they had to do.
That being said, for me, I think Seahawks are getting that number one spot. I feel like their defense has improved. Yes, you're going to have the problem with Russell Wilson dealing with that offensive line being bad again, but he's used to it by now. Still got Doug Baldwin. I think the running back situation will figure itself out. Although it may not, you still got Jimmy Graham there too to kind of lessen the blow of losing Curse, and the rookies come in and done well as well. I think Seattle's going to win this division. Arizona's going to get second. I think Carson Palmer's too good, and I think he's got a point to prove. That defense is still got a lot left in the tank. San Francisco in its first year, I feel like you're going to have to. Brian Hoyer just can't be your starting quarterback if you're San Francisco. You probably wish there was somebody that was out there that you could have picked up. But you got to do what you got to do. They're going to finish in fourth, and the Rams will improve, but they'll still finish third. I feel like we'll see a much better Jared Goff, and Aaron Donald eventually shows up again.
Yeah, you guys, said a lot of things here that I kind of agree with. Maybe a few I don't. The one thing I will say is the 49ers, we're all in agreement. They are going to be rebuilding. This is going to be a team that, they're really going to be out for upsets. Brian Hoyer is a guy, I for a long time was behind him and really thought, man, this guy's going to do some, great things. And I think he's okay. He's not a bad quarterback, but he's also not going to save the day. So I am definitely going to say, the 49ers, very last spot, fourth place here in this division. And then, of course, it's not hard to go over there and say, hey, Rams, you got that young quarterback, Jared Goff, who hasn't played a lot. Okay, well, let's see what this does. And I think he'll have his time, but I also don't expect too much out of him. I think the Rams defense could give some trouble to many, many people, but I still see they also will probably struggle at times this year, especially the Sam Donald, the all that stuff going on over there. The Donald that won't sign and keeps holding them up. He's going to give that whole situation a little bit more of a mind problem, I think, for this team. And then I got to go say the one thing you guys don't want to hear, and that's that Seattle is the second team in this division. And the reason I say that is because I think it's not really all about Russell Wilson. You do think that Eddie Lacy's got to play behind this offensive line, and he's supposed to offer something, but I think there's a reason Green Bay got rid of him. I don't think Green Bay just let him go because he was going to break the bank. I think they let him go because they realized he doesn't have a ton to offer unless your offensive line is the best of all time. And I think that's what they're going to find out there in Seattle. I think when they're close to the goal line, great. Once they're in between the 20s, there could be long days trying to figure out if they can find a new young running back. Is Procise okay? Maybe we can play him a little bit more. That's going to be the big question marks. Defense is going to be good. They're going to stay in games close. But I think the Arizona Cardinals, I think that the fact that they got a good defense, they have some old veterans that, if they can stay healthy and keep things going, I think they can make a run for the money. And it's not going to be hey, we're going to take off with this thing situation. I think this is going to come down to the very bitter end between Seattle and Arizona. But I think Arizona is going to pull it out, and they are going to be the division winner here, with the Seattle Seahawks getting a wild card spot.
Okay, fair enough. So, do you have a wild card here, Erik?
Yes, even with the 4-0 curse, and again, I'm exercising that caveat, but I think the rest of the division is too terrible that they won't be as terrible as teams in the past. So, unfortunately, because of that undefeated preseason, Arizona does win the division, but the Seahawks do get a wild card.
Yeah, I'm going to say Seahawks win the division. Arizona gets... no, actually... you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and say Arizona gets the wild card. I'm not totally sold on it, but yeah, let's just go with that. Let's go on with the NFC North. You have, I think, the Packers certainly lead the pack. Wow, that's awful. That's all. The Cheeseheads certainly want to go march into Lambeau Field and go on to another Super Bowl victory, but before then they got to deal with the rest of this division, which it seems like Green Bay are the leaders of almost by default.
The rest of what?
The rest of what? You still got a really, really good Vikings defense that you have to contend with here.
With Mr. Dink and Dunk? What's Sam Bradford going to do
Dink and Dunk works for the Patriots.
Yes, but oh, Jesus.
Dalvin Cook is a much... you got a nice running back core there with Murray, Cook.
It is way too late, and I'm way too sober for me to even argue with that, so I'm going to table that to next week's edition. I'm going to remember that one, though. I'm going to remember that one.
You got the Lions still with Jim Bob Cooter, still the offensive coordinator, and that still means that the Lions offensively are going to do what they do. Defensively, it's going to be the issue for the Lions. Still, they've been improving every year, but that's, again, where they tend to struggle. They're probably still going to be outscoring folks. And the Chicago Bears with... until Mitch Trubisky gets on the field with Mike Glennon, they're going to be what they are. That defense, I think, is going to be better than a lot of people expect, but that's about it. And then especially once Cameron Meredith goes down, that's not helping you at all. So I think we can all agree Chicago is going to be fourth here.
Mm-hmm.
Green Bay is going to win the division. I'm going to put Detroit ahead of Minnesota. Just because I feel like Bradford, I think, benefited last year from coming in and having that chip on his shoulder wanting to prove something. I think that's not going to be there this year. I understand that receiving core gets another year to be around each other and all that, but I just feel like I have a little bit more faith in Matthew Stafford and the Lions. Plus, Stafford got paid. He's got to have something to live up to here. So
I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears. Go ahead.
I'm going to agree with you for this simple reason. There is no way on God's green earth that Sam Bradford is going to complete 71.6% of his passes again. He's not. Even with Dalvin Cook, this offense is going to deteriorate. And the Vikings are probably going to finish a more distant third than even, at the very least, than I think.
All right. Gary?
Okay, so, the way I look at this whole thing, starting out with number one, you're going to hear a lot of all the way to the Super Bowl, baby, Vikes. Oh, I'm kidding. Come on, you should have sold that better. Anyway, what if I actually did pick the Vikings? Come on. You guys don't believe in it. Now I'm going to pick the Vikings because you guys just sat there. No.
Gary,
Green Bay.
Pick the Vikings. I am going to go all the way down to where you are, and I'm going to inquire about whatever you've ingested so I can get some.
Yeah.
Seriously.
No, I'm kidding. I know, and I think a lot of people would be doing that same inquiry. Definitely drug testing on F2M next year, huh? No, I mean, I look at...
Whoa, let's not go that far.
So Erik started admitting he would fail the test.
Yeah, there you go. No, seriously, Green Bay, I think they take control of the whole thing. That is no question. Sean, you're right. The Chicago Bears, they're just too much of an uphill battle. I think, we're going to see the battle of second place take place in this division, and I think it's going to be for nil. I think the Vikings and Lions will kind of trade victories. I think they'll get beat up on by Green Bay, and heck, one of those teams will probably lose to Chicago somewhere in this, season. So I look at both those teams being decent teams. I will put Detroit in second place just because Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than you got with Bradford, and I also feel like that offense is going to be a lot more smoother. Their defense has got a few question marks on it. I just don't know that the Vikings can hold it together, even though their defense is going to be pretty darn, impactful, I think, in games.
All right. Fair enough. And let's go to the NFC South, which this could be a case of teams beating up on each other very easily. You've got the Hard Knock squad of Tampa Bay, who now introduced Deshaun Jackson next to Mike Evans. What a lethal combination that is. You got Jaquiz Rodgers, who's going to start out as your running back, and then you're going to ease Doug Martin back in after the suspension. And then you've got Jameis Winston, who you would think is going to improve in his time here, but he also still has a case of the let me throw interceptions. That defense has been really getting better, and I think they're going to be one of the ones that you don't want to mess with this year. That being said, New Orleans defense is also getting better, but in a less significant format. This is still about Drew Brees throwing the ball around, even though you've now got a three-headed monster at running back. Watch out for Alvin Kamara. He is going to surprise people. If you didn't watch him in the preseason, you missed out. You're going to see him do that in regular season. It's going to be between AP and Mark Ingram. Can they share duties and do it well enough? I don't know. This is going to be a hard division to pick. Carolina, Cam Newton's got to get back to form. They're trying to run the ball more, so he's not having to do so much. Let's see about that. Hey, not to mention, Ted Ginn switched teams, so he gets to have a revenge game twice a year. And then Atlanta Falcons, they're still coming off that devastation of the Super Bowl. Are they going to be able to, suck it up, take that up, and win this division again and go, okay, we're going for it? Or are they going to have a hangover, a slump, and regress? And that's something to really think about here. I don't know. There's just something about Atlanta that I don't necessarily trust so much this year. I don't know that it's a guarantee they're going right back to the top, but they've got so many daggum weapons, it's hard not to.
So, we said the same thing about Carolina after their loss to Denver, and look what happened.
Who said Carolina had a bunch of weapons?
Well, not so much a bunch of, not offensively, but everybody looked at their defense and all these certain things.
Well, then Josh Norman left.
Exactly. I may surprise you with my pick for Atlanta in this division.
I'm going to say that Tampa Bay wins this division. Maybe a little bit of the Hard Knocks is creeping in or whatever, but I feel like Jameis Winston's matured enough. I think that defense can carry them through. Whatever you choose at running back, and they've got depth there now, is going to help them. And then adding Deshaun Jackson to Mike Evans with a double tight end so that you can now do with Howard and Brate, that's a lot of people that Winston can throw the ball to. All these teams have guys you can throw the ball to in any situation, and Christian McCaffrey's going to be huge for the Panthers, I feel like. But this is going to be a tough one. I think Tampa Bay is going to squeak it by. No division winners because they're all going to beat up on each other, but you could almost make a case for anybody here.
You're right. You really could. And, what Cam Newton are we going to get this year? Is he going to be on fire again? Is Carolina going to find a way back to a dominant defense? Is New Orleans man, are they just going to be back to that offensive juggernaut that, we love to see with Drew Brees and burning down every building that they walk into with a great offense? Tampa Bay, are they really going to be that team that you're talking about, Sean, where Jameis Winston has grown, he's matured, and he's going to lead them all the way down into a division championship? I don't know if all that's true. Those question marks are very exciting. They're important. But Atlanta, those weapons, the fact that that team is not going to be as great as they were last year, but I still feel like even taking a step backwards will still keep them above the rest of the competition. I think they've got less question marks than everybody, especially on offense. I think their defense can just hold them in games. And it's going to be a tough situation for them, but I think Atlanta will squeak out and get their second division championship here. But it's going to be tough, doing that 2 years in a row, especially in a division that is really, basically, difficult to get around. I think Tampa Bay, I think you're onto something, Sean. I look at the Bucs and say to myself, they're going to surprise people. People are just going to kind of still undersell them, think that they're going to get an easy victory, and then they turn around and get beat. And that's what's going to happen. I look at Carolina as my third. New Orleans rounds out the fourth for me because I just don't know. I think they've got some interesting weapons. I love the running back situation and the fact that their offense can do some great things, but I still think that defense is just Swiss cheese at times, and I don't think that they improved enough for me to be happy about what they're doing. So I got them fourth.
All right. What do you got, Erik?
Echoing your sentiment, Sean, I like Tampa Bay. I've always liked them as far as being an upswing kind of a team. I think that upswing continues, and they've shored up just enough to secure them a division championship. However, rest of my division might shock you a little bit. I've got New Orleans with their offensive firepower. I think with their schemes, they may do just enough on defense to finish second. I don't trust Cam Newton. I don't trust a lot of what's going on in Carolina anymore. I think Ron Rivera is going to be on a seat of fire by the time the season's done. They're finishing third, and I really think that Super Bowl hangover is going to be tremendously costly for the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, they've got the weapons. Yes, they've got the firepower. Yes, they're keeping a lot of people, but psychology is a hard thing to conquer. I've got them finishing fourth.
Whew. Man. That's a big drop off there.
Mm-hmm. It's one of these teams that they could easily fall off a cliff like so many others.
I think I'm going to have Tampa Bay first, Atlanta second, New Orleans third, and Carolina fourth. But we'll see. Like I said, the NFC South is going to be really, really interesting this year. So let's get on the last one, NFC East. You got the New York Giants, who seem to be the head of the class now with that defense that was absolutely stellar last year. If Odell Beckham can get over his ankle, you've got Brandon Marshall now, you got Sterling Shepard, you got Evan Ingram. I mean, that's a whole host of weapons. And, the running game is still suspect for them. They've got so many guys back there. You don't know who's going to wind up really taking the thing, but Paul Perkins seems to be doing well enough. And then, of course, it all comes down to the former Super Bowl winner, Eli Manning. Can he use those weapons effectively and not start panicking and throw interceptions at bad times and all that costs his team wins? If Eli Manning uses those weapons to his strength and then relies on the defense, this is a team that could go far, win a lot of games. If not, we're going to go back to having the pack mentality, and this NFC East could get really interesting. Philadelphia Eagles, second year for Carson Wentz. He's got Alshon Jeffrey now, big play receiver. Can he stay healthy enough? And, running back situation is all over the place. You still got Darren Sproles there doing stuff. Defense is, that defense has been really good for many years. You add Darby and add a few other guys that they've added, I think they're going to be rough. Washington is weird because Kirk Cousins keeps betting on himself, and he lost guys this season. Look, Jamison Crowder is going to be good, but can Jordan Reed stay healthy? I don't know. Washington could find themselves really quickly at the bottom, and Dallas is also sitting there still waiting on what's going to happen with Zeke. Is he going to be here the whole season? Is he going to play week 1 and then he's gone? What's going on with him? The fact is, the Cowboys still have a terrific offensive line, even if you're wondering about left guard. Darren McFadden has been fine. He's going to be fine if not Alfred Morris is there. The defense is the problem, right? Are these rookies and young guys in the secondary going to be able to do enough to help this front line, which is also a problem, that they really haven't been able to get to the quarterback? So, can Rod Marinelli and everybody else band together and get that, like, just everybody play for the team mentality for Dallas? But I feel like this is the New York Giants' division to lose. If they don't outright win this thing, they did something wrong. They should be first. I'm going to pick them to be first. I think they win this division. Dallas should be second. The problem is, how much of a big factor is Zeke? What's going to happen with him? How much does that affect, if he's gone, how teams decide to deal with Dak and say, okay, Dak Prescott, show us that you're really this great quarterback now. Because we're going to make sure we stuff this. As great as your offensive line is, we're going to make sure it's a problem. We're going to come blitz you. We're going to cause problems. Can he evade that and keep going? I'm going to say Dallas is in second. I think Zeke winds up playing more than not, so I'm going to say the Cowboys make the playoffs, barely to the wild card. Eagles third, Redskins fourth.
I'm going to have to pull another flip-flop on you. With Eli Manning, even the way he is, with the weapons he now has, with the way that this team is coached, and the fact that it's an odd year, taking that for what it's worth, I think this could come down to yet another season, Cowboys and Giants, neck and neck. You get to week 17, and I think the Cowboys persevere, just barely winning that division. But I do think the Giants are going to be making another potential run as a wild card. Redskins, sorry, Kirk Cousins, I don't like that. I've never liked that. I wish you would sit down with that. Seriously. Just shut up and go home. You're going to finish fourth. You're not going to get that big deal, so you live with it. That's what I like. Eagles, I don't think that this is their year quite yet. Maybe next year, but third place is going to be nothing to be humiliated about.
Well, Gary, what do you like?
I look at this and I say to myself, it's going to be a difficult division. Not because everybody's going to be squeaky clean. I think this is going to be a mud bath. I really feel that way. I think all these teams are going to not just, have their own little battles, but I think they're going to be battling it out with the rest of the league because there's so many question marks on all the teams. I think I'm more in agreement with you, Sean, on the fact that I look at the New York Giants and say, wow, they are more well-rounded than anyone else in this division. That defense is nothing to play with. I think that they're up there with the rest of these other big defenses we keep talking about tonight. I think they can contend with most of the NFL. And then I look at the offense and how much better that the New York Giants have gotten, especially at tight end. They've got a guy that, man, he's going to be so hard to cover that I think teams will be walking in saying, oh, God, we got Odell and him to worry about in Ingram. And then, you had the offensive line maybe being the weakest part of this New York Giants team. I think that's a scary combination for the rest of this NFC East. So I definitely have them as my favorites. I look at the Washington Redskins, and I say to myself, it looks like that they are still in complete, not panic mode, but a complete confusion mode. I think that they want Kirk Cousins to be their quarterback, but they don't feel like that they want to pay him. I think that there's a lot of other problems on that team that are going to keep them in last place. I think the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys will be looking at each other like saying, okay, we've got to bypass what the Giants are doing, but we got to get past each other first. And I don't know that Carson Wentz is bad. I think he's going to do pretty well for himself, but I don't know that he's going to be overwhelmingly great to put the Eagles over to the next level. I think the Eagles have enough problems on some of their other parts of their offense that will keep them out of being in contention with the Giants. So I've got them in third, and I do agree with you, Sean. The Dallas Cowboys in second place, it's going to be there because I really feel like Zeke or no Zeke, the Cowboys will find a way to win because they did add their own offensive weapons that they didn't have last year. I think the offensive line will be a step back compared to what it was last year, but it's still good enough to contend with most anybody else in the league. So Dak Prescott, I really feel like will come to this league without a second-year hangover. And I think the same for Carson Wentz. I think both those guys are going to do just fine this year. No hangover for those guys. So, yeah, I think, for me, the Giants are the favorite. I've got Dallas coming in with a wild card.
All right. So that's going to do it. Let's recap here. So we have the Giants winning the division for Gary and I, with the Cowboys winning the wild card, and then Erik has the Cowboys winning the division with the Giants having a wild card.
Correct.
Okay, and then we all had the Packers with no division, no wild card there. Erik and I had the Buccaneers. You had, Gary?
I have the Atlanta Falcons.
The Atlanta Falcons. And does anybody have wild card coming out of here?
No.
Nope.
Okay. And then we also flipped on I had Seattle with Erik, and Gary had Arizona with the other team.
Seattle.
Oh, you
That's
had Seattle.
No, I have Arizona with Seattle in my wild card.
Yeah, you had Seattle as well. Okay, so let's start in the AFC with the playoffs here. How are you ranking your conference? Your division winners and your wild cards. How's your 1 through 6?
Patriots are my 1. Just clearly. I gotta think carefully. I'm actually putting the Raiders as my 2. I think that with the way that the Raiders and Chiefs are going to go with the rest of that division, yeah, I see them just taking that next step and getting the bye. For my other 2 divisions, I think Houston's the 4. That would put Pittsburgh at the 3. I am going to put in a teeny bit of a squeaker, Chiefs at the 5, Dolphins at the 6.
All right, so that means you got Dolphins and Pittsburgh again.
Yep, Pittsburgh's winning that rematch.
And you have KC and Houston again.
Kansas City's taking that one.
Okay, so far we have the same look here. And then you... Alright, I have... yeah, that's what I have too, is I have KC defeating Houston, and I have Cincinnati losing to Pittsburgh. Gary, and then I have Oakland beating Pittsburgh and New England beating KC, and I think I'm gonna say that New England winds up getting a Super Bowl again. What do you got, Gary?
All right, well, I got
Erik, do you have New England getting the Super Bowl?
As much as I would love Oakland to finally get vengeance over the Tuck rule, yeah, I made it my prediction with Raider Ramble. They're going to get to the championship game, but they're going to fall short to New England.
Okay. Gary?
Okay, so I got New England at number 1 for me, the Oakland Raiders at 2, Pittsburgh at 3, Tennessee at 4, 5 is Houston, and number 6, rounding it out, is Cincinnati. And so my picture here is kind of interesting, and I like my wild card matchups here. I have Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, which I find, Pittsburgh will win that. You'll have Houston at Tennessee, which I think Houston will upset Tennessee. And I think it'll be a really one of those, let's do it for Houston, right? And of course, that'll lead me to the next step of the division, which Tennessee will go to Oakland and lose. Oakland will win that, and then Pittsburgh will take on New England, and New England once again will prevail, leading me to that big match. Mm-hmm.
So you said Houston upsets Tennessee, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
Yeah, so it'd be Houston and New England, and then
New England will win. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So yes, and then I have Oakland as my other divisional victor, and then I will have Oakland beat New England in the Tuck rule, being the revenge factor.
All right, so we have 2 New Englands, and then 1 Oakland. All right. And then, so let's go with the NFC. What do you got as your 1 through 6 there, Erik?
Oh, this is going to be tough.
You may give you mine first, and I can
go ahead.
Let you think about it. Okay,
Yeah.
I got Green Bay at 1, and Arizona at 2. I know that you guys will be mad about that one, but I got them at 2. I really feel like they're my bold prediction this year. And I got Atlanta at 3. I think they'll surprise people a little bit there. New York Giants will get the 4th spot, Seattle at the 5, and Dallas will pull up in 6th. And the way this is going to work out for me, it's going to be kind of interesting once again. And I'm kind of looking forward to some of the matchups that I have here, and I'm going to pull them up right now. Dallas will be going to Atlanta, and I think somehow, Dallas will actually beat Atlanta. It'll be a big upset. I think people will be clamoring to say Atlanta's going to win that matchup. The Giants will be heading to Seattle, which Seattle will beat the New York Giants, and that will be another big upset. People will be scratching their heads completely in this wild card. And then so that means that Dallas will be moving on and taking on Green Bay in Green Bay. I think this is another revenge game. I talked about the Oakland. I think Dallas will beat Green Bay in Green Bay, and that'll be a difficult task, but I think the Dallas Cowboys will build up a little bit at the end of the year. I think they're going to get better. Their defense will get to where maybe we were thinking they could be towards the end of the year and tighten up a little bit. So I got Dallas, and then I have Seattle taking on Arizona in Arizona, and Arizona will win. Arizona will upset the Dallas Cowboys, though, in the conference championship game, and they will be meeting Oakland in the Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay, so you have Arizona as your... Okay. So Arizona and Oakland for Gary. Do you think of something, Erik?
Yes. That gave me just enough time because while I do see the Giants getting a wild card, I don't see them as being the 6. I see them as being just a little bit better and being the 5. Green Bay is definitely my 1. Tampa Bay, I'm putting it the 4. Because again, while the division is the way it is, they're going to come out on top. But now, if I remember right from my NFC West, I had Seattle winning
You
that
had
one.
Seattle, yeah.
Okay, so despite they're really going to buck the trend, they would be the 2. Seattle would be the 6. And that would leave the Cowboys at the 3.
Okay, so you have Green Bay 1,
Mm-hmm.
Seattle 2, Dallas
Mm-hmm.
3, Tampa Bay
Mm-hmm.
4,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona 6,
Yes, Arizona 6, Giants 5.
Giants 5. Okay, so how do you have this playing out here?
All right, wild card weekend, Arizona at Dallas. I think with Carson Palmer, the playoff bugaboo.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you, Erik? Uh-oh.
Oh, that's not good.
Okay, well that's not good. We were about to be done. So I'll go ahead and give mine. I have Green Bay 1, Giants 2, Seattle 3, Tampa Bay 4, Arizona 5, and Dallas 6. I have Dallas pulling the upset on Seattle. I have then Tampa Bay beating Arizona. Then I have Dallas also pulling the upset on Green Bay in that revenge game that you talked about, Gary. And I have the Giants beating Tampa Bay. So you get a Dallas and Giants championship game. Unfortunately, the Giants will beat New England. Revenge for losing week 1. And then this time, New England's finally going to do it. They're going to beat the Giants in the Super Bowl, and New England wins the Super Bowl again. Well, what do you have as your Super Bowl winner, Gary? Since we
Between Arizona and Oakland, I think it'll be a really exciting game. First of all, I think that'll be something that no one really ever saw coming. But I got the Oakland Raiders. I feel really, really strongly about them this year, and I'm kind of excited to see if they do live up to expectations. But yeah, I mean, it's to me a choice that I'll definitely stick with.
all right. Well, I don't know what happened to. I don't know if his computer might have. Well, he wasn't using the computer. Maybe the tablet ran out of battery, or
Maybe
let me
so. That's
call
just
and
a bummer.
see what happened here. He might have also had to switch connections on him or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't want to keep this going just in case. Hopefully, while I'm doing the closing here, he'll show up. But if not, then we'll just have to wait till Thursday to hear who wins the Super Bowl. But all right, so thank you for sitting with us for. Actually, the actual preview went about an hour and 20 minutes, so good on us for not being that long. The other 20-something was the 2 bits of news that we talked about. So thank you for joining us here for our season preview. Of course, you can listen to this on WTMNet.com, on Last Word on ProFootball.com, YouTube.com. Look for that W2 Network channel and subscribe. You can listen to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, everything else. Leave us a comment on one of the websites. Let us know what you think about our picks, and also give your picks. Give your divisional picks and your Super Bowl picks and all that stuff. That's always great to hear from everybody. I like having a long list of what everybody picked, and then we can see who's right at the end of the season. That's always fun. Make sure you check back. Again, if this is the first time you're listening to us, and I'm pretty sure there probably will be a lot of people first-time listeners. Season previews tend to draw new people. We do 2 shows a week on Thursdays, so we'll be back on Thursday. We will be talking about that season opener, Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Patriots. We'll see where the 2 teams stack up here. Then we will also preview all of the other games, give predictions. We'll also do some just quick picks on college as well. And then on Monday, we always do a Monday night show after Monday Night Football. Of course, the first week, Mondays. Again, I already said that, barring Hurricane Irma taking everything out, we will be here Monday night after the second Monday Night Football game. Oh my God, thank God it only happens once, because I don't know if I could do this with the staying up till 2 in the morning thing. And we will not only talk about the 2 Monday Night Football games that happened that night, we will talk about all the other games. We have Game Pass, Erik and I, breaking down the games, talking about what happened, talking about the situations, all that kind of stuff. Still trying to fit it into about an hour and a half podcast. And hopefully you will enjoy and let everybody else know that you enjoy us and that we're around. So, unfortunately, looks like we lost Erik for the rest of the show, so I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Thank you again for checking us out. Make sure you check us out during the season. We'll be back on Thursday night, Friday morning for you. And this has been the Football to the Max 2017 NFL season preview. For Gary, for Erik, for myself. See you later.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.